Hey, folks, and welcome to, at least for me, a really special edition of Warehousing Wednesdays. I am joined today by Jim Tompkins, who is a long-time luminary in this field and whom I worked for back in the 90s and helped get me started on this career I've had, and who literally wrote this book, among a whole bunch of others, on planning and improving warehouse operations. This is my 1988 version that still sits on my shelf and that I still use for reference. About 3 weeks ago, I saw on LinkedIn that after a well-deserved but brief retirement, Jim had stepped back in the consulting world. So I reached out to catch up, and we had a great conversation and got his thoughts on the consulting industry, what's going on in warehousing, and why his approach is going to be a little bit different this time around. And I think it's worth sharing with you all. So with that, Jim, again, it is great to have you on. And why don't we start with what brought you back, and we'll go from there.
Well, super, Mark. It's so good to see you again, and so good to chat. I can't believe you have the 1988 version of that book. I mean, my goodness sakes. I think you worked for me in the early 90s. What year was it exactly that you started with me?
It was, I think I started in 93 to about 96 years. So I was there about 3 years.
Okay. So 93, that's just about the time that the word supply chain started to be around. And so, yeah, when I started the business in 1975, all we did was warehousing, and then we added transportation, and then we called it distribution, and then we added inventory and network planning, and we called it logistics. And then starting in the early 90s, about the time you joined us, we started using the word supply chain, and the business grew and expanded, and it was a lot of fun we had back in the 90s. And then as we approached the year 2000, we decided to go international, and so I sold 35% of the firm to private equity, and that first private equity firm was great. We grew the company. They sold their 35% to Blackstone, and so Tompkins International was a Blackstone company from 2008 to 2015. And then in 2015, Blackstone sold their interest to a Chinese private equity firm. That allowed us to start Tompkins Robotics. And so we then had as a parent Tompkins International, and we had Tompkins Solutions and Tompkins Robotics underneath that. And that ran great until 2020. In 2020, COVID hit us, and it was bad. It really hit us hard. And so I decided I was going to retire. So I retired, and so that was an interesting time. I found out I wasn't very good at retirement. I didn't do that very well. I think I lasted for like 3 weeks, and the phone rang, and someone asked me to help them with a problem they had. And we'd actually designed a warehouse for this company 4 years earlier when they called themselves a janitorial supply company. Well, now in April of 2020, they call me up and they say, we need you to build that warehouse you designed for us. I said, well, when we designed that warehouse, you had to grow 6 times larger than you were before that was the right decision. Have you grown 6 times? He says, Jim, between 4 years ago and January of this year, we doubled in size. But since the January and April, we've grown 4 times larger. So we're now 8 times larger than we were when you did. I said, 8 times larger? What did you do? He said, well, we no longer call it janitorial supply. We now call it a sanitations products business. And so what he was doing is he was selling everybody and their brother and their brother's sister sanitation products. And with COVID, we all were cleaning everything. And so his business exploded. And so he called me up and he said, Jim, you got to help me build this building. And I said, I don't build buildings. I design buildings. I'm a warehouse guy. I'm inside the buildings and transportation, that's the logistics and supply chain. I don't build buildings. And he says, well, Jim, we need the building. Can't you call someone? Don't you know somebody? I said, well, I do know some people that own land where you're talking about building. And so, yeah, I can make a few calls. And so I made a few calls and put together a guy that was going to help him build his building. And about a week later, my wife called my office and she says, Jim, did you order some wine? And I said, well, no, I didn't order any wine. She said, well, there's a case of wine on the front porch and I can't lift it. Could you come down and bring it in? And I said, well, yeah, I'll be happy to. So I went downstairs, brought the wine in, opened the box. And here is from this guy that we I helped, get a building for him. And so that was kind of cool. I thought, well, I'm retired. I don't get paid anymore, but I work for wine. I mean, that's not so bad. And then about 2 weeks later, in came a check for $15,000 from the guy that built the building. And I called him up. I said, I can't take that money. He was a client of mine. I can't take $15,000 from him, but just, give him a name of somebody. He said, well, Jim, you're not getting money from him. You're getting money from me. I said, well, why would you pay me? He said, well, if that guy called our inside sales guy, this inside sales guy would have done the same thing you did, and I would have given him a $15,000 bonus. And so I thought, hey, let's give Jim the $15,000. I said, well, why are you doing that? He said, well, if you find another building and you bring it to us, they'll give you another $15,000. And I thought, wow, well, $15,000, we can buy some really good cheese. And so we had a party. We had some wine and cheese. We had a great party. And I thought, well, this is kind of cool. And what I found is that the consulting business that I had run for 40 years was asset heavy and project based. So we got paid when we did projects, but we had to have all these people to provide this capability around the world. And so that's what we did. But now with this new business, what I found is I was asset light. I didn't hire any people. I just called folks I know and put them on projects. And when you call people and put them on projects, lo and behold, those projects oftentimes turned out to be a 3PL or it turned out to be a technology. And those things had recurring revenue. And so I got recurring fees. And I said, oh my goodness, isn't this interesting? And so I started a new business called Tompkins Ventures, which was a matchmaking business. Today, we have over 250 partners in 61 countries around the world. And these people find opportunities. And then we have commercial partners, capital partners, and consulting partners that do the work. And so I'm kind of a matchmaker, which makes me asset light and recurring revenue. And I thought, wow, isn't this cool? Well, a private equity company bought Tompkins Solutions from the Chinese private equity firm. And he got looking at it and thought, man, this company's called Tompkins Solutions. I think I'd like to have Tompkins run it. So he called me up and he said, Jim, he said, I'd like to hire you. I said, well, that's not a very good idea. I haven't worked for anyone since 1978. I don't think I would make a very good employee. In fact, I wouldn't even write myself a letter of recommendation as far as employment. I don't do that employment thing too well. He said, so you don't want to work for me? He said, would you work with me? I said, well, yeah. And so we did a deal. And guess what? I'm now the chairman of Tompkins Ventures and the chairman of the firm you work with us at, Mark, Tompkins Solution. And so now I have both sides of the house. I have asset light, I have asset heavy. I've got global coverage, and it's an unbelievable cool experience. And we're having a ball. And goodness knows, you and I were about 25 years early when you and I were working in the early 90s, because it wasn't until COVID hit that supply chain came out of the closet. We were the warehousing guys, the transportation guys, kind of, the C-level looked at us as the guys back there, that, they didn't really contribute to the value of the company. They just kind of got stuff delivered from time to time. Well, when COVID hit, all of a sudden we became resources that were really critical. So I kind of feel like, Billy Joel for 45 years, I sing in a little corner bar, and every now and then someone would stick $1 in the cup. And then all of a sudden in 2020, I'm playing Madison Square Garden. I mean, this is supply chain's a big deal. And so it's been just a fun ride, and we're having a ball. We're doing good work, and the things going on now with the tariffs and the reglobalization and the redesign of supply chains. I mean, I tell you, I'm having the fun of my life. I mean, this is absolutely just a ball. And I'm finding a lot of companies that are really thinking about things differently.
One thing on the asset light, and you and I talked about that, here at Redwood, we do the same thing. This is the first time I have worked for a 3PL, a 4PL, where we have, our brokerage systems, and we have a systems division, and we have a warehousing division. And that is one of the things that, as you know, when you're a pure consulting firm, it's 3 months. You're trying to reinvent yourself all the time. And being able to weather that storm long term here at Redwood as a company and to bring that stability to our partners is something I've never experienced before. So that is great. And I get exactly where you're coming from. And you mentioned all the tariffs and the instability in the markets that we've had this year. It isn't, I don't think it's been fun for anyone. Of course, if you're us, if you're a consulting firm and that's what you do, we're doing okay because we have answers. And for Redwood, we do a lot of cross-border stuff. So we deal with the tariffs and trades all the time. I'm going to give it back to you to do one closing thing, and then you're going to promise me we're going to circle back and hit a specific topic next time because it's great to have you back. So with that, what's your closing thoughts, and then we'll plan for a part 2.
Well, I think it's really cool what you're doing at Redwood, and Redwood, and it's basically the same thing we're doing here at Tompkins, and that's offering the clients a broad selection. We're offering them an ecosystem that can solve problems, and I think that's absolutely the right thing. It's exciting to be able to do that, to start with a project, carry it all the way through to implementation, and we're doing it differently than we did. Back when we were doing it in the 90s, we were looking at optimization, and we were trying to optimize the solution. Today, we're not optimizing. Today, we're optionizing. We're providing optionality so that if this tariff goes in, we can do this. If this tariff goes in, this. If transportation does this, then we can do this. And we have that capability to be fluid between solutions. And that's what makes your firm great, and that's what makes my firm great, is because we have the ability to provide a solution that's going to continue to provide a great solution, even though the situation changes. And that's really cool. I love what you're doing. I love what we're doing.
All right. Well, very cool. Thank you so much. We're going to definitely have another conversation. Thank you all very much. It's just an honor to have the man on, and I'm great seeing him back in the industry because we need more people like that. Jim, thank you. And that's it for today, folks. I will see you next week on the next edition of Warehousing Wednesdays. Thank you very much.